Extra Prolific. Welcome to the Library with Tim Einenkel. Thank you so much for joining us on especially this crazy, crazy time in the world right now.
Yeah.
Same song. All around the world, same song. On the radio, same song. We so tired of the same song.
So I'm from New York. I started this podcast really just to, with the idea of like not knowing exactly what was going on as I was growing up as a kid in New York City, where it's like, for me, it was like I always say, Self-Destruction came out when I was 11 years old.
In the mid, so to crush that stereotype, here's what we did. We got ourselves together so that you could unite and fight for what's right.
Obviously knew that was an important moment in music and in hip-hop, but an 11-year-old kid, you're absorbing the music and not really understanding what's going on. So this podcast is really about what was going on at the time that I was a young kid and learning, and all these groups are coming out, and obviously you're more West Coast, so it was a lot harder to get, I guess, West Coast music back then. But talk to me about your early beginnings. I mean, what drew you to hip hop? When did you know you wanted to do this as like your form of expression?
Yeah. When I first heard my first hip hop record, I believe it was Curtis Blow, The Breaks.
And these are the breaks. Break it up, break it up, break it up.
It was at a party that I heard within the apartment complex, and I was blown away by this art form. After that, I think I heard Rapper's Delight, Sugar Hill Gang, obviously.
I said the hip hop, the hip it to the hip hop, you don't stop the rockin' to the bang bang boogie, say up jump the.
And it just, I don't know. It's not like I chose it. It was almost like it was grabbing me, almost like this is who you are, and it encompassed many things. It encompassed breakdancing, graffiti, beatboxing. It was just a lot involved with it, and it spoke to me as a young person. I was very young. It spoke to me, and it kind of told me this is the avenue that if I wanted to speak, I could speak in. And so that was my earliest memories. But from there, it began to let me know that, there is an avenue, there is a genre that speaks to my type. And so whenever you want to speak up, here's the microphone. And it made me feel like that. Like finally somebody understands me. Finally somebody is speaking in a way that I can, understand it and comprehend. So that's how it started.
Did you understand, I guess right off the bat, that it was not just, you mentioned the culture part, but did you understand that there was more to it than just the music part of it? I mean, did you, or did that come later, or is that kind of all came at once?
What I understood early on was that this was directed towards me, and I understood that there was a responsibility involved from the person who was giving it to me. In other words, they weren't just going to give me anything. They weren't just going to feed me garbage. Whether we were partying, whether we were doing something conscious, whether we were, whatever they were telling me, it almost was like they were telling me with my best good in mind. Though I didn't have the full picture, I knew that whoever was talking to me like an uncle or a dad or somebody who wanted to see me stay safe.
You mentioned, you mentioned obviously names we know, but was there like comedians talk about a comedian's comedian, right? Like maybe someone that no one really knows about, but if you ask any comedian about him or her, they're like, oh yeah, that was our influence. That was a big impact on our lives. For you, was there like a rapper's rapper for you that maybe never blew up in the sense that, you know, wasn't played on MTV or, you know, Music Box or anything like that, but to you was like had this significant impact on you.
There were a lot of talented guys as I was coming up. Now I'm in elementary, junior high, and I'm going to the high school games. I remember the first time I went to a high school game, one of the high school games in Houston, Texas, Smiley versus Forest Brook, and I heard a guy, he was rapping and people were crowded around him, and he was talking about nasty stuff, you know, and I was like, oh, man, and it just clicked. I'm like, man, you can rap about different things. Mm-hmm. And so he was talking about Too Short type things before Too Short, and it made me, in a sense, want to, you know, talk about that. And I remember going to the school the next day, and I started rapping nasty a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And there were, different influences within my life from guys that never blew up. But I would have to say for the guy that really blew up before we really had access to him was KRS. I was living in Houston, Texas. That's where I'm from initially. And for the summer, we went to L.A., and I heard on a L.A. college radio station, this Boogie Down Productions thing, this poetry song, and I was like, whoa, who is this guy? It was so clear, it was so concise, so influential, and I was so influenced that I even went back home and I grabbed T. La Rock's tape because I thought he may have something to do with Scott La Rock.
So you can stop guessing if this is a gift or a written down memo. See, I am a professional. This is not a demo. In fact, call it a lecture, a visual picture, sort of a poetic in rhythm like mixture. Listen, I'm not dissing, but there's something that you're missing. Maybe you should touch reality. Stop wishing for beats with plenty bass and lyrics set in haste. If its meaning doesn't manifest, put it to rest. I am a poet. You try to show it, yet blow it. It takes concentration for fresh communication, observation. That is to see without speaking. Take off your coat, take notes. I am teaching the class or rather school.
So yeah, man, it's been a lot of guys coming up that had the gift. I used to battle rap with a guy named Kool-Aid. He was dope in high school. There was a guy who used to do some things on the Houston radio stations called Lester Sir Pace, and he had this song called Where's Your Hair, Gal? And kind of clowning women who didn't have a lot of hair. So there's a lot of local guys that I looked up to, but ultimately I would say on the big scene, KRS-One was the guy who hit me first when I came back home. Like I had to find who this guy was, and ultimately he blew up, obviously.
Wow. So, you know, I'm obviously speaking to you as extra prolific, the solo artist, but obviously, you know, your history is you came as extra prolific as part of a group, a duo. How did you go from, you know, the middle school, high school kid in Houston, Texas to extra prolific, the duo, but also kind of becoming a part of the Hieroglyphics collective?
Yeah, well, I was always rapping, obviously. When I got to my high school, I was still rapping, but I quit rapping for a year because I was a little bit discouraged because it seemed like it was becoming a trend, and I just hated the way people didn't seem to really love it, but they were trying to be opportunists. And so I was kind of done with it. And then one guy that I hooked up with, his name was Jamal, he was starting to rap, and he was new to rapping. And I said, man, if you need some lyrics, I can help you. So I started writing some raps for him in his group. And then once I started writing again, it started hitting me. I'm like, man, I'm feeling it. So he and I, we made a group. It was called Authority. We had a song called African Freaks. And it was over the Loonies. I Got Five on this sample, which for those who know is Why You Treat Me So Bad by Club Nouveau. And so people were like, man, you guys, this song could do something, man. You guys are dope. You guys are dope. And so from there, I bumped into Casual. And Casual, he didn't really like the guy who I was with. Long story short, I ended up going with Hyro. And my other guy got left behind doing some other things. And from there, man, is when I got the name Extra Prolific. That was Casual's old group name, but he was going to come out solo. And I got extra prolific because the industry had a Snoop already, and he was being executive produced by Suge Knight, and everybody seemed to be scared of Suge Knight, so they wanted me to kind of change my name. So I said, Cash said, well, man, you can use my name, and then from there you can put Snoop under it, so it won't be so blatant, and that's how that started.
How did you? I was reading an article thinking about your debut album, and it talks about how, talk about the different approaches to the people or the MCs in the Hieroglyphic collective, and Del being slightly left of center, Souls of Mischief were kind of like the young, battle hungry, cipher warriors, and they talk about you being kind of like they quote you as the LL Cool J of the South, so that
yeah.
How'd you create your style, and why did you? And what are your thoughts about kind of being the comparison, being known as like the LL Cool J, I guess, style?
Well, my style came from when I got with Hyro. I was new at rapping. I was new at MCing, meaning wordplay and learning about the fundamentals of certain MC styles. And so before I joined with Hyro, I was listening to, DJ Quick, Spice One, LL. If I did grab a Leaders of the New School album, I would record the 2 songs that I like and I would return the tape.
Nice.
Obviously, Tribe Called Quest is phenomenal. They're more mainstream as far as their sound. But I didn't get into the really weird stuff. Like I didn't get into ultramagnetic infused. I didn't get into that. But I love Special Ed. I love Dana Dane and Slick Rick. So I was hip hop, but I wasn't all the way to the underground lyricist part of things.
Right.
And so when I came, I had my big personality, but I was still willing to learn what they were doing because I had such a great respect for what they were doing. And so when you hear me, you hear a lot of personality from a guy who's been that way for years, who's just beginning to learn the art of MCing. And so LL was one of my influences. Matter of fact, when I used to clown the guys, playfully. I used to be like, man, y'all De La Souls. I'm more like LL. And so I was kind of relearning what it was to be a rapper in a sense, because I had such a great respect for what they were doing. But my personality was so much so that I love all the LL albums. I love when he was able to yell on one record and be cool on one, MC on a record, and then be chill on the next. And so that was my style, because I always had the ladies in mind, and I always had the MCs in mind. So the LL it's a great comparison, because that's kind of like where I would pattern myself after initially, until I got into high rock.
I want to ask you about kind of what it's like to be on a major label, in the sense that you signed with Jive Records, and in this article about the 25th anniversary of the debut album, Like It Should Be, it talks about how same passage talking about your style, talks about how Jive Records couldn't really figure out what to do with you. What does that mean? Like, what does it mean when a label signs you but then has no clue what to do? Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, no clue what they're supposed to do with someone they signed. They obviously signed you for a reason. So, why isn't there follow through on their part to, I guess, make it work or figure it out?
Yeah, well, there's 2 sides to that coin. One is, just like we just spoke about, I was not exactly like Hyro. I was different. I was the black sheep in native tongues. You know what I'm saying? I was the if you want to say, like DOS effects in EPMD, meaning that I wasn't the same as everybody else exactly. The other side of that is the label itself. It was not the same, even though the logo was the same. It wasn't the same when I was coming up. It wasn't the same label that put out Steady Beat, KRS, Tribe Called Quest. They were going through a transition, and they were now getting these R&B numbers from High Five, Blackstreet Boys, R. Kelly, which makes you want to gravitate towards the numbers.
Right.
And so they literally had A&R men who were doing homework about hip hop. It wasn't like you and I where we say, man, I love that record. That's dope. I know talent when I hear it. They
Right.
had been to school and they were learning what was dope. And I don't even know if you can learn what's dope. Dope is something that you feel.
Right.
If I was an A&R for a country musician, I know what a good record is, but I can't really say from the top of my heart what a great country record is, because that's not my genre.
Right.
And so they were really confused, like, man, do we market him to the UGK crowd, or do we market him to the Too Short crowd, or do we market him to the KRS-One Boogie Down Productions crowd? He's like a mixture. And so fans look at that record like, man, it's so slept on, it's so dope. But because they didn't have it organically in their heart as fans, they wasn't sure what to do with certain records. And so mine got kind of put on the shelf. And once it didn't take off by itself, they got unenthused.
So what happened after the debut? How long did you stay with Jive, and what was your thinking when the relationship ended? Like, what was your plan for yourself after it was ending?
My plan, first of all, with Jive was to, put out a couple of singles and then try to milk it and then do another album. But what happened was I was on a phone call with my manager. And this is back in the day when we had three-way phone calls. So I was quiet while they talked. And he was basically talking on some foolish stuff like, oh, man, we put out 2 singles. We don't know what else to do. We listening to the whole album and we don't hear anything else. And so we basically are done with it. And so once I heard that, I went to the Low Down Dirty Shame album release party, and I was going to let everybody know on the mic, kind of like where I was. And so I kind of like blasted the executives. I blasted Jive, and I let everybody know that they probably hadn't heard my single because it wasn't being promoted. And so once they heard that, they let me go. They marked me off as crazy. And from then, I just began to work on my craft. I said, man, well, if I was able to get signed, that's some recognition. Let me continue to walk down this path in such a way because I wasn't the greatest MC on my first album, I was more leaning on my style, my delivery, my wit, things like that. And so I knew that I had a greater level to accomplish. And so that was my focus after that. Like, man, let me dig into my craft. Let me get better at this wordplay and MCing so that the fans, whoever they are, whenever they come by, can respect a good project.
I want to just take a step back just to kind of give the listener kind of an understanding of what it means when we say that you were a part of the Hieroglyphics collective. What is, at that time, what is the importance of that statement of saying, I am a part of the Hieroglyphics collective? What did that mean, especially at that time when you were debuting and coming out?
Yeah, Hieroglyphics was a crew that was grown organically from guys who lived close to each other. It was casual. Souls of Mischief, Dale, Pep Love, J Biz, and myself. And Dale was Ice Cube's cousin. Mm-hmm. And so he's the one that got his toe in the dough before everybody else. And so we were kind of working on our craft and things like that. I came a little later once they were already working, and they kind of brought me in. But it was the same thing. You have a Wu-Tang Clan, Freestyle Fellowship. Hieroglyphics was just this family of different groups that were known to be great lyricists and innovative. And so once the family got recognized, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, we understand who he is. It's kind of like if you see somebody from the Wu-Tang Clan that you've never heard of, they already have a sense of recognition because you know who they are a part of. And so Hyro is that type of family that came up, man. They wanted to be innovative. Although we were from the West Coast, we didn't have a West Coast sound. We were more focused on lyricism, beats and breaks, and hardcore underground open mic type of lyricism. And so that's where I came out of.
When you were recording, the debut album, Like It Should Be, did you, because of the albums that came out from from Dell's album, Souls of Mischief's album, Casuals, did you, prior to your album dropping, was there extra quote unquote pressure you put it on yourself for the debut album? I mean, did that did those albums prior, No Need for Alarm and 93 Till Affinity, and did those kind of give a healthy competition for you to kind of, help step up your creative or your game on that aspect of it? Did you even think about those albums prior to while you were recording your debut album?
The way we did it was everybody had demos. Cash had a demo, Souls had a demo, I had a demo, Pep Love and JBS had a demo. Now, Dale's first album wasn't No Need for Alarm. It was I Wish My Brother George Was Here. Mm-hmm. And that was commercial, and we knew that Dale's next move was going to be on some underground stuff because he didn't exactly love the way the direction that Ice Cube and Jinx had placed him. And right. So the way we came at each other, man, we would just be riding in the car, and I'd be like, man, listen to the new song I did. Be like, oh, man, that's dope. And they play something, listen to what we did. And so it was more like inspiration.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It was like, man, whoa, we can't wait till the world hears this. And if something wasn't really appraised or loved by the family, it may fall off and never be heard by the public. So we were more like excited about what each one of us had to bring to the table. Me, myself, personally, I never felt any pressure. Matter of fact, I could have been a little oblivious to the fact that the fans did want to hear more complex lyrics. I was just so excited to give my angle, my version, my perspective of what we could be, which was, this cool guy who was from the South and who had, who loved the ladies, who had this type of voice and this thing. I was ready to give my angle. And so it was never competition. It was never pressure. It was more excitement about, man, once you guys come out, they're going to love this. Matter of fact, we didn't know who the public would love most. We just knew that we were dope and we couldn't wait for each person's single to come out. And so when I came out, it was just excitement within the crew. It wasn't any pressure.
Before we move on to the new album, Like It's Supposed to Be, I just want to ask you two questions about Jive Records and your experience, and I promise you I'll be done with that. In 2020, looking back, what do you think the biggest lesson you learned business-wise from your time at Jive, and then also from that time, what do you think the biggest lesson you learned creatively as an artist, your music side of it, that you kind of take with you to today?
The biggest lesson that I learned from the Jive thing is once you have something that you are confident in, once you've asked a multitude of counsel, once you've checked with the people that have your best regards in mind, don't ever second guess what you're doing just because somebody won't push you. It's like, numbers, they do tell the truth, but they don't tell the whole truth. What do I mean by that? Vanilla Ice sold 10 million, right? Does that make him the dopest? Not at all.
Nope.
MC Hammer, who I have respect for, he sold millions. Does that make him the dopest? Not at all. And so just because you don't sell as much as somebody else, that's not the way you rate dope. You rate dope on dope. It's on its own scale. So that's what I learned, because for a minute they had me second guessing what I had turned in. And it's not like it's a classic album in the sense that I believe it should have gotten 5 mics, but I believe it's 4 mics at least. And from there, there's something for you to work with. If you can get Keith Murray to blow up, if you can get, who else was on the label at the time, anybody else to blow up, then there's something here for you to work with. So I would say with the Jive thing is like, if people can't see it, after you don't want to be solo in your own thoughts, but if you've checked with everybody else and you know in your heart what dope is, and a big company won't acknowledge you, then keep on going. Even Dre, he questioned the Chronic at one time because nobody was signing them. That's one of the best hip hop albums ever made. And what was the second question?
Music wise, like I guess the kind of the creative process wise, like what was your kind of biggest take from that, and that you kind of use today as you continue to, write and do art?
Okay, yeah. The second is just creative wise, man. Like, just stick to your formula. Like, what do you do? How do you hear it? What's true to you? It's one thing I noticed when I was on Jive Records. They had if somebody would blow up, they started trying to search for the formula on why they blew up. And instead of trying to have somebody do their own thing, they wanted to mimic what blew up. And so that's a fake formula. All that's going to do is cause you to be a copycat. We got an M&M. Next thing you're going to have a Snickers bar or somebody. It doesn't make sense. What you need to do is you need to do what the person that you looked up to did, which is come from the heart and make a song that you think is dope and take a risk. Stop being so safe. Soon as somebody does the auto-tune, we got a million guys doing the auto-tune. You know what I mean? So what I've learned creatively is, like, trust your ear. If it's your ear that got you signed, trust your ear. If it's your man who you trust before you got signed, then trust him. But don't change up to fit in. Do your thing, and then let the people change up to fit in with you.
I'm going to turn to the new album, Like It's Supposed to Be. Can you just talk about the title and what it means in 2020, and obviously it's a reference to your first album, but can you just talk about the significance of the title, Like It's Supposed to Be?
Yeah, definitely. Like It's Supposed to Be, obviously, is a play on Like It Should Be, which is my first album. Mm-hmm. It wasn't my idea, but my man Pete Spray, that's one of the producers, managing me and things like that, and Love, they came to me and they were saying, well, man, why don't we do Like It's Supposed to Be? And at first I was like, I don't know about that, you know what I mean? Because I've seen guys try to do some things, replicas of their first album, part twos, if you will, and it doesn't always work out. So I was a little bit hesitant. But as I began to work on the project, I said, okay, man, this might be dope. If I can have a reference point for the people who love the first album, and now they can see the second album, to make a bookend for what I started. So Like It's Supposed to Be, in its greater context, is the way that I feel life really should be, where hip-hop, we're going back to the self-destruction days, where we're not just going to talk good in life, but then talk bad on our records. We're not just going to give 10 G's to the boys club, but then lead them wrong in our music. Like It's Supposed to Be is about where we encompass the whole message. The soundtrack is going to match our talk, and it's the way we think things should be, as far as lyrics, content, beats, singing, everything on one accord, one consistency, where everybody can see this is the way it should be. So Like It's Supposed to Be is not only a play on words, but it's the way that I think hip-hop should be. And I think we've dropped the ball in the sense when we glorified criminality, when we made immorality a good thing, we forgot about how impressionable some minds could be. And so Like It's Supposed to Be is full circle, where I'm coming and I'm saying, like, yeah, I know I said Like It Should Be before, but Like It Should Be, Like It's Supposed to Be, this is really where it's at, man, where you can play it in front of your kids, use some of the principles to raise your kids, come together and bring fathers back in the home. Like, it's the full picture. When back in the day, I just had a part of a picture, which mostly had me in mind. Now I'm thinking about everybody and what it takes for us to succeed as a community.
Is that why I'm going to skip ahead in terms of the tracks, but DJs and MCs is I think is a phenomenal track. Breaks down kind of just, it's one of those things that if I was to ask you about your history without talking to you, I'll just play that track, DJs and MCs. Is that kind of what's the significance of DJs and MCs in the context of, I guess, the title of the album and the mission of the album? Yeah,
DJs and MCs. Matter of fact, the title comes from an old Rodney O and Joe Cooley song. They had a song called DJs and MCs.
DJs and MCs. Joe Cooley is he. Well, graduated, motivated DJs and MCs. So check this out, don't shout, cause I'm carrying clout. And big money's what I make when I run my mouth. You see, the rhymes I got are the rhymes you don't. And the rhymes I say are the rhymes you won't. So I got the camera, smile and say cheese. And me and Joe Cooley are DJs and MCs.
And I used to love Rodney O and Joe Cooley, so I got the title from them. But the content in the track comes from showing the history of rap. Like, man, when I first came around, like I told you initially, it was Sugar Hill Gang, it was the Breaks, and these people, they were partying, they were telling us things. If there was a cuss word, they were going to bleep it out. There was principles there, there was morality there. And from there, we began to go into breakdancing, b-boying, MCing, and things like that. And then now it has morphed and evolved into a place where I talk about where, hey, man, now we got guys wearing dresses with guns. You know, those supposed to be the guys we're looking up to. And it's almost like, what happened? How did we go from self-destruction, which was warning us about what would happen if we self-destruct, to actually self-destructing? What happened? What happened between why is that? And then we go into a place where now we talking about I'll pop you. How did we go from, fight the power to fighting each other? It just doesn't make any sense. And so DJs and MCs is a shout to every MC and to every DJ. And I'm trying to big up us and remind us, like, look, man, everything can't be about everybody else. Sometimes we got to look within and say, what can we do better? And I remember being a kid when I was influenced by hip-hop, and hip-hop was influencing me in the right direction and dropping science, dropping knowledge. So if I was influenced by hip-hop in a positive way, you can't convince me that hip-hop can't influence a kid in a negative way. So DJs and MCs is about the evolution of hip-hop, the beautiful parts, and also the parts where I think we can get it a little better.
Trying to get through to you, use your platform for good. It's our duty till we got more money, but we got less heart. If our lives really matter, what contradicted in the art?
One thing that I appreciate you mentioned on that the track as well is that you make a point of reference to to mention your growing up on your dad's record collection. Earlier you talked about the MCs that you were influenced about, but can you also talk about the importance of the music you were hearing at home that also helped shape you as an artist?
Yeah, I immediately I grew to love music. I used to get in trouble for having the radio on all night. I would try to wake up and turn it off before my parents woke up, but I just couldn't get to it sometimes. I just had to. So I loved music. So my dad initially, he had Al Green, Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire, Barry White, Teddy Pendergrass, Peabo Bryson, so much soul, Stephanie Mills. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And he had his neatly stacked record collection. If you touched it, he would know. He might have had OCD back in the day. So, so I just love listening to his records. Come to find out, those are the same records that we sample today. So I just had a love. I had a love for hip hop before hip hop was even involved in society. It was just that I was in love with the samples that we would one day sample. And so, man, I always loved music. I was the type of guy when my dad was ready to get out the car, I'd be like, hold on, Dad, wait, can we finish listening? I was that kid. I just loved music. I love records. And my mom, she had the gospel stuff and stuff like that. But my main influence was always soul. And then when I went to a white school for a couple of years, I learned to love rock. And I just always loved music. I love good records. I can listen to almost any genre and pick out a great record. It's just something that it was like it chose me and I didn't choose it. So that's always incorporated in my hooks, in my nostalgia, and the way that I incorporate a record or even sample. It comes from that era, the 70s, where I believe some of the greatest records were made.
Can I ask you your opinion on? I hope this question makes sense. So I think what kind of has changed with this, obviously the sound of rap music is that. Like when you were coming up, as you mentioned, you had your parents' record collection, right? And because rap wasn't the number one genre of music. I mean, it's significant. Like being in New York City, I remember driving around, or in my parents' car, and there was a station called Z100, and they would the big voiceover was proud to be like, absolutely no rap music, like very proud of saying that. And today they would not be called dead not playing rap music because they obviously know the popularity of it.
Right.
How do you think it? I guess the goal, maybe, or maybe the goal or the mission of rap and hip hop culture changed, or maybe stay the same, with people growing up with rap actually being an influence for them versus other, the number one influence versus like other rock or gospel and stuff like that.
Yeah. First of all, when we were introduced to hip hop, it was this was trial and error. This was something that may or may not last. It was something that could be a fad or not. I remember when Salt and Pepper and Kool Moe Dee protested the Grammys because we didn't have a category, and so this was a trial. We were rebels in a society, and we were pushing this thing, hoping that it would be respected by mainstream media. And so it's definitely different, because the new school, I asked a young man about 5-10 years ago, I said, man, what was your first hip hop album that you ever heard? And he told me it was Illmatic. And it was like, man, it was like, whoa. Illmatic came out when I was about to record my first album. So for somebody's first album to be Illmatic, they have such a confidence that this is not gonna not fade, but it is what it is. It's a $1 billion industry. And so there's a different confidence level. There's a different esteem that we have, seeing certain things being finally accepted. The Grammys finally accept us. Certain award shows finally accept us. Finally, Houdini was the first hip hop group to go platinum. First guy to go double platinum. So these were milestones within our seeing and growing and watching of hip hop. But these days, it's already something that has always existed. And so you would have to do your homework to look back and see when it didn't. But on top of that, the difference is the message. And so this is what I want us to get back to. It's not, some people have a problem, okay, all you want is the golden era. It's not that. But what we need to get back to is when we had a conscience. The golden era, we had De La Soul, we had LL, we had Too Short, but there was a variety of things. I have a problem when everybody today wants to sound like Future. They want to sound like the dopest person is the one who does not read. I came up on times when the dopest person was someone who was educated. Ice-T, he had a record that was called My Lethal Weapon Is My Mind. And I remember driving as a 16-year-old in my car. My friend, he said, where you going? I said, I'm going to the library to get more ammo. And I was thinking about Ice-T's record. And so what we have to do to be a part of the solution and not the problem, is we have to start dropping nuggets in there for the youth to grasp a hold to, that they can ride all the way up to adulthood and raise their children with. Because entertaining records are entertaining records, but what makes it heavy or weighty is when you drop something in there that a person can live off of and use, drop wisdom, drop science. So the big difference to me, today it seems like anything goes. You could say anything. We had Too Short, but you had to sneak to listen to Too Short. You know what I'm saying? We had Blowfly, but he was underground. We had Ice-T, but he was, he was a hustler, but in a lot of ways he was telling us, don't do what I'm doing. These days, it's almost like the dumber you are, the better you are. The more you don't care, the better you are. And it's almost like, if we don't be careful, we'll mess around and poison what was so beautiful.
So the first track on the album, Fresh Prince, has Master Ace.
Yo,
what's good? This is Master Ace, Brooklyn, New York. EMC is the crew, and Real Hip Hop is back. Check out Extra.
Starting out to talk, what is the significance of having him on this track to help start out the album?
When I was in high school, we had the Marley Marl album, which had the symphony on it, had Master Ace, Big Daddy Kane, MC Shan, Roxanne, Shantae, the Juice Crew. You know, we know the lineup. And they were, to us, it was nobody doper. Matter of fact, we got into arguments all day, like, who's the best? Is it KRS? Is it Rakim, or is it Big Daddy Kane? You know what I mean? It was only 3 rappers, and most people argued about 2. Was it Kane or Rakim? And so to have Master Ace come and say something on my album is not so much about who I am, but it's more about who he is to me. Like, man, this what he means to me, I don't care if a million people don't know who he is. What he means to me, he represents that era. If you would have told me in 9th grade that one day Master Ace was going to speak on my album, you know, then I would have felt like, well, then I'm successful in life. That's how much he meant to me. And so having him on the album speaking that, man, is so dope, because what I'm referring to, and like it's supposed to be, is the time when it's about beats and rhymes, where hip-hop, the dopest person was not the one with the most followers, but the one with the dopest lyrics. And that whole Juice Crew era, man, with Bismarck and Head D popping on there, man. That's when hip-hop was more than a genre. It was a way of life. And so to have him on there was just kind of a big up and a salute, and just a reminder for all of those who come up with me, like, you remember what it's all about. It's about the Master Aces, the Bismarcks, the Head Ds, the Canes, the EPMDs. It's about those guys when it's all said and done, because those are the guys who inspired us.
I'm like, see you later. Got on the radio, I could tell it was written. Old school freestyle me, I can't forget it, cause it ain't even written, it ain't even wrote it. When I'm on the microphone, the truth, not sugar-coated.
What's the importance of, and I appreciate this because I have this, I don't know what it's from, like this quote-unquote weird, I don't know, obsession? I don't know, not obsession, bad word. About with beats and music. I really like music that's produced with like classical sounding, like, you know, piano or violin. You know, it's something that, because I always think it kind of really highlights the MC's voice as well as that kind of that extra instrument when it's there. Mm-hmm. So for you, what is the significance of the piano on that track, piano, but also in music?
Man, on that track, I heard the track, Oh Love did the track, and I was like, the vibe I'm getting is just reminding me of a piano. My wife plays the keys, so I was like, okay, let me write a little bit about that within the music. But in general, man, I've always loved instruments. You know what I mean? I love it when instruments are sampled. I used to play the guitar. I played the trumpet for 4 years. I played the piano for a little bit. And so to me, hip-hop is at its dopest when it's taking those old school classical sounds, even with the crackles, and it's dropping it with the new beats. There's nothing wrong with played stuff, but sometimes, which is characterized by West Coast music, sometimes the played stuff can get away from, to me, the essence. Like, I don't mind being heavy with the bass, but man, give me a dirty sample on top. Don't have it so played that it sounds like you know what I'm saying, some music artist could sing over the top. So I love the classical jazz, obviously Ron Harper, you know, all the saxophonists. You know, we can go on and on about who, but it's nothing better than, to me, that's the essence of hip hop. Going record shopping, dropping it on the turntable, and then a loop grabs your ear and you make the best out of that loop. So I love it, man. And the piano, the whole song was just kind of a shout out to that, man. Like instrumentation, the instrument itself, and let's keep in mind, you know, like really what it's all about. Like, man, it's not a whole lot of components in hip hop that you need to be dope. You need a mic, turntables, maybe a piano, maybe a bass or whatever. but just breaking it down to that rare form where dope is dope. Sometimes when it's too much added, you know, it gets away from the element. And I don't want to be legalistic about it. You can add any instruments that you want, but you want to keep in mind, man, we're trying to talk to an audience, not go platinum necessarily.
Find out you were lapped by me. Is it wizardry or magic? Your majesty, he lavished me like it came down magically.
What's the Bang the Drums is the lead single video from the album. Why did you guys go, or why did you choose to go with Bang the Drums?
I chose Bang the Drums, man, because I thought it was saying what I wanted to say. People hadn't heard from me in a while. And, you know, the first line I say is the game is fake. When I'm listening, I can't tell if it's Wayne or Drake. And so I had played I played a lot of records, and I heard some things on the radio station. And honestly, man, I couldn't tell who was who. I didn't know if I was listening to Wayne, Drake. I didn't know if this was Future, if it was Designer. I mean, it was so many different artists that sounded the same. I said, man, you know, I want to come in with something that don't sound like anything, don't remind me of anything. And so I put out Bang the Drums, and the record came from when I was listening to songs. I said, man, this don't sound like, you know, everything I'm hearing sounds alike. It don't seem like anybody's bold or confident enough to do their own thing. So I remember K Solo, he had a song called Drums of Death. And LL had Rock the Bells, and I kind of mixed those together with Bang the Drums. And then I said, when I write my lyrics, I'm going to come off, you know, with this drum sample, and I'm going to talk about the problems with hip-hop today and also where I think we should be. And so Bang the Drums was just kind of like a wake-up call, like, man, get out of that old mumble rap, get out of that old sleepy music, get out of that old syrup drug music, you know what I'm saying, and let's get back to MCing. Bang the Drums.
Every song that told us that it's cool to murder. When you see the way he's on the throne, you know we should be further. That's why I pray for the slums and the real ones. Feel me. Bang the drums. Same song all around the world. Same song on the radio. Same song. We so tired of the same song. Bang the drums. Do you want that?
Lost and Found starts with a sample of Biggie.
Rock to my tape pop. Rock to my tape pop. Rock to my tape pop. Rock to my tape pop.
The same sample kind of throughout the track. Why Biggie? But also, if you could also talk about the lyrics that you start out with, which is "I brought my backpack in because lyrics is back in." Kind of talk about the importance of these lyrics and what these lyrics mean as well.
Yeah, man. When the beat was given to me by Scott Thrill, shout out. He had the Biggie sample in there, and I was like, ooh, yeah. You know, Biggie obviously had that commanding voice. Some of MCs had that commanding voice, like Tupac, Chuck D, Heavy D, Biggie. We can go on. And so it's going to grab your attention right away. And then when I wrote, I'm like, man, I brought my backpack in because lyrics is back in, letting people know. I see the Kendrick Lamars out there. I see the J. Coles out there. I see some of these new guys who are focusing on lyrics, and I appreciate it. And since lyrics are back in style, boom, here, let me talk about my thing. And it was all about, if there's a rapper or it's been influenced by my style, then man, let the people know. Write me a check. Say something about it. Dana Dane influenced me. I'm not just gonna do every interview and never give a shout out to Dana Dane. That makes no sense. That's what you call biting, if you can't give it up. And so I like to give my shout out. It's like LeBron. If he's just to go in the NBA and never give a shout out to Jordan, it makes no sense. And so the appeal on the record is like, look, man, if you've been influenced, if you have my CD when you was a kid, don't sit out here and sound like me and don't ever give me any acknowledgement. Man, just go ahead and give it up. It don't make you less of an MC. To me, it makes you more of a man with integrity. So that's what that was about.
At the end of the day, it ain't about an accolade. Making sure your shackles free. Grateful grateful that your family's paid. My top 10 the world don't acknowledge. About 2 cents is what I think about it. Rock on.
Rock to my take hop. Rock to my take hop.
What happens now for you? I mean, you have this new album. It's out. We're obviously talking during a pandemic, so tours are canceled. What is your plan in terms of keeping the music going, getting yourself kind of more out there? So I guess what's next?
I got something coming up on my guy's Pete Spray. He got a project coming out, Yo MTV Raps project, for the people who know about it. Type of a nostalgic project with some great names on there. But as far as the pandemic and things like that, man, it kind of brings it all back to what I was saying initially, which is it's like it's supposed to be. I believe God is in control. I believe that certain things happen. In life, it's very normal to take things for granted. You see your kids every day, you begin to, not appreciate your kids. You're in your house every day, you begin not to appreciate your house. It's just a normal way of life. And so when we are used to being around each other every day, used to having certain avenues with a green light, we are almost kind of caught off guard when there's a red light or things have to change. And so for me, man, the essence about good music is to always be true to yourself and make good music organically. It's not about followers per se. It's not about even having to do concerts. I believe that good music will always be found by great fans. And just like the way I love, man, I have so many artists that people don't know about, but I found them because they have a record of doing good music. I just want to, whenever you look at me, you can say, look, man, he did this, he didn't do this, fine, that's all good. But one thing he did do, he never came out with nothing weak. He had such a love for music that you could tell he was an artist, but he was also a fan. He had such a respect for the game that whenever I see his name, even if I don't like the record, I know it's going to be quality. And that's all I can ask for. And I believe that once we give our best, it's up to God to put it in whosever hands he wants to. Many are the plans of a man, but it's God who directs his steps. Men throw the dice, but God decides if it's going to be 5 deuce or if it's going to be 2 aces. So that's my theology. That's my philosophy. And so I just want to continue to make good music. I believe that I'm coming to an end in a sense where, I don't want to be in the spotlight always. I don't have the same desires that I once had when I was 20. And so I want to pass it on to my sons. I want to get in the background. My wife, she sings Regina Siobhan. And so it's not this, I don't have the same desire. I don't want to, I think Jordan at some point, even though he's the greatest of all times, at some point he puts on a tie and says, you guys play now. That don't make me any less of the best player of all times. It just means that I'm more in tune with seasons. And a lot of times we have a trouble with seasons. You see rock and roll guys, they be like 90 years old and they still trying to act like they're 20. And sometimes you see hip hop guys, they be older and they trying to act young. I don't want to act younger than I am. I want to be relevant. I want to be accountable. I want to be responsible. And now that I know what my gift means, while I'm rapping, I want to give something that's going to help the next person grab the baton and go even further. So that's where I am.
He's extra prolific. New album is like it's supposed to be. It's an honor to have you, man, on The Library with Tim Einenkel. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, man, I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. And shout out, man, to everybody, especially, this is full circle for me because Ice-T, man, like I told you, he said my lethal weapon is my mind. The first 2 albums I grew up on as a kid, and I looked up to that man. And I think every OG, the Ice Cubes and the Chuck D's and the KRS Ones who started one way but have evolved into a more mature mindset because there are kids listening, man. And so I shout out and salute every OG, man, who may have been wild back in the day but have tapered off and not grown. You ain't sold out. Some people say he's sold out, but there's no selling out when you mature. That's called growth, and I respect it deeply. Thank you.
About 5 years old, the youngest of 3 cousins. The first time I ever heard a hip hop song. Curtis blowed the brakes in the gang with the sugar. Billy Mill with the message. together cause we had pop blocking and breaking the Fat Boys was the favorite. That's back when I used to get my medallions off of Mercedes. We like the party. We like the party. We like the party. Rockin' the Kangol in middle school, B-boy stand. Me and my cousin beatboxing UTFO Roxanne. Feel a sweatsuit, case Swiss gazelles in the page. I went from Def Master, DMC, Nerd, Snoop, then Majors. I fall asleep to music, wake up to it. One year I quit rapping cause everybody would do it. I go to the store to snatch a rapper that I didn't know, hoping that I could get a scratch, an act that they didn't know in high school. I clicked with the hieroglyphics. By 97 I was on my own monolithic. Signed with Jive, I'm ready to destroy these cats, but they was more concerned with acts like the Backstreet Boys. That's when I discovered that some of these companies don't even love the music, they just love the money it brings. 1 to 40 in the video, go ahead. You a slave and you getting the warm piece of cornbread. Now what's missing? The liberty and life lessons. Cats becoming bloods after they dealing, now they stressing for no reason other than the influence. Chased by a bunch of Crips in the hall wheezing. Whatever happened to rapping attached to the African medallions and the clocks that had us feeling like we were all back again. Even the gangsters told them the lethal weapon was our mind. Record execs pushing negative sets, funneling garbage to the hood straight from the studio. Now this little kid telling you what he wanna do to you, but the art is beautiful, trying to get through to you. Use your platform for good. It's our duty till we got more money, but we got less heart. If our lives really matter, what contradicted in the art? This song's for you.